do you know the most profitable episode you have put out?
But I can say Scandoval was probably the biggest revenue generator outside of right now, which is Blake and Ryan Reynolds and Justin Baldoni and that whole legal drama. I would say maybe Scandoval, Blake and Baldoni, and then maybe third, I would put under the Erica Jane, Tom Girardi stuff. I think that's what really put me on the map was the Girardi coverage since I was covering the legal side of it and it was Bravo, so people kind of knew me in that space. But then I was, analyzing the lawsuits and breaking down the court docs that I think that definitely made me a lot more noticeable. And then Scandoval, I think, is really where a lot of people found me.
But that also is your secret sauce. Like that is the talent that you have that a lot of people don't. You literally read through all of the court documents and you're able to understand them and explain them in lay language.
Yeah, like that's the biggest challenge is taking like these 80 to 100 page lawsuits, reading all of them and condensing all of that information into bite-sized 90-second reels.
You're very transparent and very open about money and business and strategy. And you're like, yeah, I'd love to like, because the conversation really should have been recorded that we were having because it was so good. So I'm going to prime you with a lot of similar questions, if that's cool.
So I would say for the first like 4 or 5 years that I had the podcast, it was a really good learning lesson, but like it was a total flop of a pod. Like it wasn't taking off. And I think it's one because people didn't really know me. They didn't really like it. The show didn't have like a strong niche. And it wasn't until I leaned into something and that became from general pop culture. And then I leaned more into reality TV. And then I started to get a little more micro and also leaned into video, which was something that I always knew I should have done from the beginning. And everybody around me, I kept telling them like the podcast needs to go video, and it was just not like it wasn't a thing. People didn't do video podcasts.
By video, you mean YouTube?
Just film. I knew that it had to be video form. Like I just knew I was stronger on camera than I was just on mic. And so once I feel like I kind of gained my footing on mic, I knew that like the camera would really just elevate the show to the next level. Our friend Jacques, he's always like, you're a Bravo podcast, just stick to Bravo, stick to doing Housewives. And I've always been like, no, I know that that's what I'm most known for, but I've always covered an array of subjects. And even when it comes to politics, people are like, this last election cycle, you finally got political. And I was like, actually, no, on No Filter in 2016, I heavily covered the election. I worked with Rock the Vote. We did episodes that were dedicated to the election. I did a whole episode on pro-Trump and a whole episode on pro-Hillary to see both sides. I had people come on and debate. Same thing in 2020. I did a liberals and conservatives podcast where we all came and it was just like a big panel of everybody debating everything. So I've always bended when it comes to the genre, or I've always bent when it comes to the genre, but it wasn't until I started to tap into the news cycle, as you said, that it kind of started to gain a bit more traction on socials. And that's when I learned how to use social media to push the podcast.
So if we're to talk numbers, let's first talk about YouTube, actually. When I first met you, you were releasing, I think, 2 episodes a week. Now you go live on YouTube every single day. So here's my first question. Is it easier 5 episodes a week versus 2 episodes a week because you're more in a flow state?
You're more in a flow state. And then what I like about the live streaming component is you're live. So you have to navigate the show. You're driving the train as it's going within the hour that you're, or however long the episode is. You have to make it work. Whereas I feel like when you're pre-recording things, I would often be like, oh, let me retake that. Oh, let me edit this. Oh, let me do that. And so then it just takes up so much more time. Whereas it's like, if I know going into it, I just have one clean cut, I have to make sure I nail it in this one clean cut because there's really no editing because it's being live streamed.
And it's forced you to be more concise with your sentences, maybe use fewer words, naturally eliminating the ums, uhs, all of that sort of stuff that we would go in and eliminate maybe a little bit more of in post-production.
Yeah.
Like, how has it made you a better broadcaster?
People say that like one of the toughest forms of podcasting is solo podcasting and then solo podcasting while live streaming because there are so many components to it. You have to stay on track of, what your talking points are. You have to make sure you're not talking too much about one specific topic because you have to be mindful of the time. You usually have a live chat when you're live and you want to engage with people and make sure that you're giving them shout outs and giving them love as well, while also making sure you're staying true to the outline and the structure of the show. So doing it every single day. Now I have my schedule down and my structure for my mornings is like on lock.
What's your calendar? Yeah, give me your hour by hour.
Yep.
What
So
time do you wake up?
4:15.
Oy.
I wake up at 4:15. I get the dogs out the door. We go outside, and then from there, I'll come back. I'll get ready to go to the gym. I'll start prepping whatever the show's notes are for that day, whatever headlines were popping the day before, whatever needs to be covered. I do that all first thing in the morning so that the news is always fresh since it's a daily show. Get ready, go to the gym, work out for an hour, come back, make breakfast, feed the dogs, take a shower, jump on the live stream.
What time are you going live?
9 a.m. So I work out from 6 to 7, and then I have that 2-hour window to come back, eat, feed the dogs, take a shower, do any last minute prep, brush up my notes, make sure there are no new headlines that need to be added, and then I'm live by 9.
Now,
9 to 10.
To the naked eye, one might say your day is done at 9 a.m., but I know that's not true. Tell everybody what you then do the rest of the day.
So edit the episode, put it out there. I also have another podcast called The Pop Report and then another one called Disaster Daters. So if we're taping those, then I'll immediately go into studio to film those episodes. But outside of that, it's all just social content. So whatever the topics were of the day on the podcast, then I'll break those down into a 90-second reel that I'll upload onto Instagram, onto TikTok, onto Reels. That way, that news or that info, I'm putting it out across all the different platforms.
It's funny. I have a friend, Brendan Davis. My friends, Brendan and Dan, they host a long-running Bravo recap show called Come Through Queen. Do you know the most profitable episode you have put out?
But I can say Scandoval was probably the biggest revenue generator outside of right now, which is Blake and Ryan Reynolds and Justin Baldoni and that whole legal drama. I would say maybe Scandoval, Blake and Baldoni, and then maybe third, I would put under the Erica Jane, Tom Girardi stuff. I think that's what really put me on the map was the Girardi coverage, since I was covering the legal side of it, and it was Bravo, so people kind of knew me in that space. But then I was, analyzing the lawsuits and breaking down the court docs. That I think that definitely made me a lot more noticeable. And then Scandoval, I think, is really where a lot of people found me.
But that also is your secret sauce. Like that is the talent that you have that a lot of people don't. Is you have a real passion for the law, and you literally read through all of the court documents and you're able to understand them and explain them in lay language.
Yeah, like that's the biggest challenge is taking like these 80 to 100 page lawsuits, reading all of them and condensing all of that information into bite-sized 90-second reels that then, are captivating enough for people to keep coming back. And like, as I was covering with Blake and Baldoni, like all of those were getting millions, like, 1 to 10 million views per video.
So let's talk about YouTube first, and then we'll go on to Instagram and TikTok. So let's say Scandoval. We'll use that as an example. A 45-minute live stream, doesn't really matter how long it is. How much money, roughly, are you making per episode?
It depends, right? Because a lot of the episodes, it's a conversion with the ad revenue. So there are a certain number of ads that are run on each episode that YouTube will auto generate, and that's separate from like ad reads that I have on the podcast that I'll read during the episodes. So those are just casual ads, but like, so it depends on views, who watches through, who doesn't skip, and then who clicks through. So even if you have a video that has a lot of views, that doesn't always convert to high revenue because the click-through rate and the watch length also factor into that as well. Like some people, like when you said, like timing of the video doesn't really matter if it's a live stream. That's not necessarily true, because if the video is super long and people are not captivated enough to watch, because I've seen people go live for 2-3 hours, but like nobody's watching past the first 10 minutes. So that's not going to perform well.
Ballpark number. How much are you making on a video when at the height of Scandoval, when it was happening in the moment? What were you making on a great video, great news day?
That's a really good. I mean, maybe like 1,000 per video. I mean, it was good money, I can tell you that.
And how much are you making roughly now, like a month from YouTube?
Um, it can go anywhere to like 8,000 a month just on YouTube. Um, or like a low month, I would say maybe like 3,000 if it's like really there's not that much going on.
And you're
But I
also
mean, it can range.
and you're also repurposing the audio on your podcast feed as well.
Correct.
And how
And
much
that so any money that's generated through YouTube is specific just to the auto ads, the ad revenue that YouTube's running on your videos.
and then how much are you then making on that same content that you're repurposing on the podcast feed?
It depends on how many ads we have running, and I think it's like a 1,100 to 1,200 per ad. And generally, I do like 3 to 4 ads per episode,
Okay. So let's
so
talk
a few extra thousand.
a few extra thousand
Yeah,
per month or per episode?
per week because we run the ads, we sell them per week.
Okay. Are you saving your money?
Um, so I had a really challenging 2019 that cleared my savings because I lost my job, and that's when I had to make the podcast and my social content. I was making good passive income from that, and that's when I had to really pivot it full time. So I cleared my savings in 2019. I had just signed a brand new lease. I had gotten a new job, and then I had immediately lost the job. And so from there, I kind of had to build. So I built up a little bit of debt, cleared my savings, recovered in 2019. Then we immediately went into 2020, pandemic, whole world shuts down. That was another challenging year. And then 2022, 2023, I did kind of bounce back. 2024 was a challenging year because I dealt with some contract bullshit, but outside of that, it's been
What was
fine.
your day job?
I used to run Jenny McCarthy's foundation. I was the executive
Right.
director. So I ran the company, and it was a national company. Like it
How
was
how long were you doing that?
I was with the foundation. So I started as like a volunteer slash intern, and then I became part-time. And I worked there part-time for a few years. I was there in total for about, I want to say 9.5 years, but I was only really full-time the last maybe 5 years.
Okay. That's
But
great.
like that's full-time job, steady income, benefits, and like overnight that all just kind of went away. And I was like, oh shit, now I got to make this profitable. Like I really got to lean into it. And because I had nothing else at that point, I had no college degree, I had no other job work history outside of the foundation. And to be honest, I wasn't about to go work for another organization because the money in nonprofit is not that great. Like it's nonprofit for a reason. There's no profit to be made.
So I know just from like knowing you really well, you don't have health insurance. You say
I
that
do not
you
have
say there are
health insurance.
three people in your family, you and your two dogs, and you're
Yeah.
the only one without health insurance.
No, only one of my dogs is insured.
Only
But the
one
thing,
of them.
they're
What about the
so
poor
well
other
because
one?
Well, because they're from the same litter, they're very similar. So I'm just like, listen, whoever needs to go to the vet, you're Sky. Like, and we'll just rotate the dogs in and out. They're the same age, same litter, they look the same. Like, we're just gonna, whatever we gotta do, we gotta do. We gotta make it work.
That is
Listen, I
really
had to
funny.
recover from 2019 and 2020, like in 2024, I had to recover from those years. I think this year we'll be able to get everybody back on health insurance.
Doesn't the vet know which one's which?
They don't care.
Oh
I'm in
my God.
downtown.
That is
Vets
so
are
funny.
small. They're, yeah.
That is hilarious. I didn't know that. So to what so clearly your tolerance for risk is high.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I've been through so much since I first started working that like nothing, I mean, nothing can break me.
I know you grew up single mom. You grew up in LA.
Yeah, I mean, born and raised in East LA, so not the nice part of LA. Parents had me in high school, traditional Mexican story. Dad, dad had a bunch of kids after me. I was the oldest, but no. So
Raised by single mom.
yeah,
And
raised for the most
and your grandmother.
Yeah, mostly raised by my grandparents because both of my parents were so young that they really didn't know how to be parents at that age, which is totally understandable. But so when it comes to like you saying that I'm fully willing to lean into risks, it was really just because we started at ground zero. There was no real, we were at the bottom that there was only you can go up from here. And so the safe route was, go to high school, graduate, go to college, get a degree, and then find a good job that's going to pay you, that's going to have benefits, it's going to have a 401k, all of that sort of stuff. I always knew from very young, I was like, listen, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm not going the traditional route. It's just not going to work for me. So even in high school, I went to a Catholic high school for the first 3 years because that's what my family wanted me to do. And then come into my junior year, I was like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore, and I'm taking the reins of my own life. I've already, I basically signed my mother's signature on all of the documents out, like unenrolled myself from high school, enrolled myself into a homeschooling program because I only needed 3 classes to graduate. And so for my senior year, rather than going to school, I just homeschooled those last 3 classes to get my diploma. And I did that. And even when it came to college, my family was like, you have to go to college. It's the right thing to do. I kind of obliged again. I went to community college for 2 years, knowing I was never going to graduate. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to figure it out. I always knew I wanted to be in entertainment. And I just always kind of had a hustle. And I think my family just saw that. And they saw that, like, I always was landing on my feet, regardless of what I was doing. And I wasn't really coming and asking anybody for money. I wasn't really asking for any, not that there was any money to fucking ask for, but like, we didn't have much. But like, I always knew I wanted more than what we had growing up, and I was going to work very hard to get that.
But
And I did.
it's surprising to me that you didn't even go into law because you have such a high level of reading comprehension.
Yeah, but you also have to understand, like, I didn't think that that was possible. Like, I didn't realize my own capabilities until I put myself out on the field and then saw what I was capable of. And I was like, oh, I actually, like, I would have never thought I could write a book growing up. I would have never thought that I could read a lawsuit and understand it and explain it to other people. Like, to me, those were such foreign concepts that it wasn't until through Housewives and through an Erica Jane scandal with her husband that I then decided to lean into that and then realize, oh, I can actually, do this and be really good at it.
And we should say that wasn't just a throwaway thing you just said about like writing a book. You did write
Yes, I did.
write and self-publish
yes,
several
I wrote 4
books.
books. Yeah.
Did you make money from the books?
Um, Not really. They were, I mean, again, nobody really knew me.
So
I
why
didn't
did
have
you?
like,
What was the impetus to do it?
well, they were all focused on autism and growing up
Your
in high school in my
brother.
20s. Like a lot of it was, just the philanthropic work that I was doing, to try to raise awareness. And, even when it came to my brother, like we did the books and then we did a documentary. The documentary never came out, but we did that. And so part of the reason that I decided to do that, because people have tried to say, oh, well, you capitalize off of your brother's autism diagnosis. But I was like, actually, bitch, no, I used those opportunities to get him the treatment. Like we got him one of the top autism doctors in the country through those resources that I had, and it was like, oh, hey, doc, you want to take us on as a client at a discounted rate? We'll film with you. We'll bring the cameras in. Like we'll do all of this, And so I was doing, brand deals back then. That was 2012, 2013, 2014. Like before I even knew that I would be doing this now, it was just finding ways to pull resources and make what you got to make happen.
And now you use all those skills just in
Yeah.
different modalities.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Blake Lively thing. How this is like really popped your numbers and been a huge income source just in the past couple of months or in the past couple of weeks.
Weeks.
Talk about what you've been able to create and the strategy behind it. Like
Yeah.
you, like
I mean,
you
listen.
can really break it down. Like I want you to talk to me like I'm an idiot. You flip on the green screen
Yeah.
and you do, yeah, like start from there and like how you cover it for 45 minutes or an hour on the live stream, but then narrowing that down into a 60-second clip and explain why it's so important that you got to do it. Yeah, what we were talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
I mean, listen, I am very grateful to Blake and Baldoni because they've covered my rent for like the next 2 months at this point, maybe even 3 months with just the coverage on social media, not podcast money, not merch money, not because that's another thing that is another conversation for another day. Is you need to have like 8 different sources of income that are constantly coming in.
No, we're gonna
But,
we're gonna talk about that too. Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to like the Blake and Baldoni stuff, so I'll read the lawsuit, and I've been doing this a very long time, that you have to come at it from the lens of like what's going to capture people's attention and what's going to like hook them, right? So, you always have to have like a name or a celebrity. Like even there, so like the video that I'll probably make today will probably lean more on Taylor Swift because Taylor Swift was just named in Baldoni's lawsuit. She's a big name, she's a big face. So you want to make sure like the face is in it and is very clear. And you want to make sure that like there's a very specific, unique angle that you have. Because what I see a lot of people do, which is kind of their fatal flaw, is they'll go on TikTok and they'll make like bless his heart, Perez Hilton does this. And it just, to me, is such a poor strategy. He will go on 9 minute TikTok videos where he's basically just talking to himself because nobody's sitting there and watching an 8 to 9 minute video on TikTok. So what I like is that Instagram limits it to 90 seconds. That's the max you can upload a video on Instagram. And luckily, YouTube and TikTok also for shorts or for TikTok videos also has that same range. So what I like to do is take a very specific topic like Justin Baldoni, drops receipts about Blake Lively and the intimacy coordinator. And so the entire video is just focused on that one thing. And I try to talk really fast to get all the details, like the juiciest bits, right? You're not going to fit everything in there. And I think that's what people struggle is they try to squeeze as much information as they can. So they make the video too long. But like you have to squeeze just the juiciest bits that are going to be, I like to think of it as, will this be a headline in Us Weekly? Can I see this on the cover of a magazine? Because they do the marketing the best, right? Even National Enquirer, they know how to word things and phrase things in a way that's a bit clickbaity, but I think people are also really savvy to clickbait. So you have to make sure that it's beneficial for whoever's watching it. And, I just think keeping it to 90 seconds is within a person's attention span, but also if the video is entertaining enough, they'll watch it all the way through. So I try to make sure it's informative, in some way entertaining, and also just capitalizes off of whatever the biggest headline grab is going to be, whether it's a celebrity's name or just a really juicy detail.
And did you learn that strategy through a lot of failure?
Yeah, I mean,
Like a
trial
lot
and
of,
error. Like I said, No
yeah.
Filter was a flop for the first 4 or 5 years. And it was because I didn't know how to structure the video. So whether it's a reel, whether it was an article that I wrote, because I used to write for Pop Sugar and Men's
Mhm.
Health, outside of the books, I did a lot of, and I actually learned a lot from Pop Sugar when I was writing for them because they put me on like their TV team. And so I would remember getting assignments from them and then submitting it and then just seeing how they would tweak certain things, how they would restructure headlines. That then to me, I was like, okay, this makes more sense for this reason, right?
Mhm.
This is the header, or this is what we're leaning into to grab the audience's attention.
So let's talk the monetization of TikTok. So you have a few or several of the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni videos, which have crossed, like one has crossed 10 million views. If some has a million views, are people making any money if they do not have more than a million views?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't hitting the millions before. I would hit like the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and I would still make some good small passive income. Nothing crazy off of TikTok, but I didn't really use TikTok as much as I did with the Blake and Beltoni stuff because that's where I saw it really peak. And you also, even though I upload similar content on Instagram and TikTok, you don't sometimes the audience like so perfect example, I did a video on Jen Shaw. She's getting out of prison early. And on Instagram, it didn't really do that well. But on TikTok, people seemed a bit more interested in it and it got more traction there. So
Hmm.
you can't always predict which channel is going to do better or which platform is going to do better, but um you can definitely make money off of the thousands and hundreds of thousands. It's just about the consistency.
So with the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni videos specifically, let's talk
Mhm.
about, is it the RPM or the, what is it? Is that it?
RPM. On TikTok reads as an RPM.
RPM. So you said that you were able to make your rent on a couple of videos. Now, those couple of videos, one got 10 million views, another got a couple million views. How much money, like, how is it monetized?
So, my understanding of TikTok creators, which is similar to Instagram because they both have creator programs. And so essentially they pay you based off of they want you to post and they want you to put out good content. So they'll pay you the RPM, or in some cases it's considered a CPM for and I think it fluctuates between like 24 to 34 cents per I think it's per thousand. And so for however many views you get and how much engagement your content gets, they will pay you for that content.
So,
TikTok does it and Instagram does it as long as you're part of their creator rewards.
and so how does that translate into dollars?
So,
Give me an example of literally one of your videos.
well, here I can just pull up my analytics right now and read it to you. I can tell you, I think total, I maybe did like 12,000 just from all the Blake and Baldoni content in the last couple of weeks. But here, it'll tell you which like your highest rate, your like highest ranking videos are.
Yeah, how
Okay.
many videos per day? And I know you have a strategy for not
I
posting
only
too
do
frequently.
once to twice maximum, and there has to be really good content to put out. Um, oh wait, here we go. So the best video that I had that brought in the most money was only $40 per video, and that one only got 200,000 views. So that seemed to have a higher RPM than like oh no, here's another one. I guess it wasn't in order.
So what did that translate to into dollar, like in the
Two
month?
point million views. This video, 2 million views translated into $600. 1.7 million views translated into $421. 4.7 translated into $1,200. Um, so my highest video was the video that got 4.7 million views, and that brought in $1,200. See, but then I also have another one that got 5.5 million views, but that only brought in $1,100. So it really does count on the actual engagement. People commenting, people liking, people sharing, people saving it. That's a really big factor as well, because you can see this other video got a million more views and yet got $100 less.
So
So
somebody
the engagement is really what counts. It's not just about the views.
so somebody like Bethany, she has a compulsion. She certainly isn't doing like quality control the way you are.
No. No, let's pull up her account right now. So we have Bethany Frankel, 2.4 million views, and her video. But look at her videos. She got 12,000 views, 14,000 views, 200,000 views, 42,000 views, 71,000 views. So they're not benchmark numbers, right? They're all very low, which is a strategy, right? So my strategy, as you said, is more about quality. So like my last videos, 1.2 million, 144,000, 425,000, 3.2 million, 10.2 million, 2.5 million, 1.6 million, 8.2 million, 3.3 million, 2.3 million, 4.2 million, 4.3 million, 1.5 million. So if you're putting out good quality content, you're gonna get like you don't have to put out the
So
volume that someone like Bethany is putting out.
would you say her on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, is she putting out good content?
No, I wouldn't say she's putting out good content. She's putting out a lot of content, but as I told you, the more content you put out, if the content isn't hitting well, you're not going to end up in the algorithm, right? Because they're going to read that as you're putting out these videos, but they're not of quality because nobody's watching them all the way through, or nobody's liking them or commenting on them. So it's going to show in the algorithm that people just aren't interested in that content, and therefore it's going to essentially, in a way, shadow ban you because you're not going to be prioritized in the algorithm.
But because she has a more is more strategy, that's her strategy. More is more.
Yeah.
Do you think she's able to make enough money monthly than she was doing some of those big licensing deals? Or,
I mean,
or is this literally just like change that she's just like socking away?
I'm sure it's changed only considering she has a very high net worth. But I would guess maybe she's making about like 10 to 15,000 per month from TikTok alone. Just looking at her views and the volume of, videos that she's putting out, I would imagine she's not making a ton of money per video, but collectively, I'm sure she's making some good change.
Heidi and Spencer. This is fascinating to me, and I know this is like the story of the week. So Spencer's, I mean, I guess for anybody who doesn't know, they invested all of their Hills money into Heidi's music career. This album, Superficial, which came out in 2010, which is 15 years ago. And the album flopped? Like, was that basically it? Like, it didn't make any money.
Yeah, it didn't do too well. No.
And when they sadly lost, when they tragically lost their home and his parents' home, the number one thing, well, I should say also, their biggest regret over the past 15 years is how could we blow all that money. Like that, they basically saw it as a bad investment, which like I guess it was until last week. And so when the fires happened and they tragically lost their home and his parents' home and like their entire community in the Palisades, he is banking everything. I think he sees making that album generate money is the one and only hope they have. And so his whole thing is stream the music and buy the music on iTunes. When I texted you, which was really how we got into the entire conversation period about streams, I'm like, how the hell is Spencer making $1 off of Spotify streams? Because I work with a band and I know that I tried to buy their album or attempted to go through the process. And I was like, girls, not one person is going to buy this because I'm trying to buy it. And it is impossible. Apple has made it impossible for you to physically buy an album on iTunes. It's the most difficult thing you could ever imagine. And so how are streams translating to dollars?
Very similar to like TikTok and Instagram, where they pay you per engagement on the videos. That's how they quantify streams as well. But I mean, like when it says my RPMs are 24 cents, per view or per 1,000 views, that's similar to, I'm sure, what they're making with Heidi's music. And I would imagine it's probably even smaller than like 24 cents. It could even be like 10 cents.
You know what I think?
Yeah.
I think no real money is going to be made from the streams.
No, I don't think any streams are made.
Any money is made in the streams.
Yeah.
I think what it does is it translates to like Spotify ranking. It's all to capture a headline. It's to like get in the news and have people talking about it the way we are now. They're the number one news story of the week. And get people listening to the music, having that music embedded on TikTok, the TikTok charts. It will potentially go number one on Billboard because there's no other competition. And where the money will be made is that it made Heidi relevant. And she can potentially be booked on like a festival tour, like a Coachella. Like they're suddenly heroes.
Yeah.
That is where the money could be made.
Well, no, I mean, I would say look at Scandoval, right? Look at Ariana. She became relevant, and so bookings and opportunities came as a result of that. So
That's
I don't
what I'm
think
saying.
No, but I don't think he's sending her to perform her music. I think he's ready to book her on other reality shows, on like, look at what he's doing right now. I think they're making money off of interviews, right? Because a lot of these press outlets would be willing to pay for those interviews, that I'm sure he's making some change there. They're going to be making money off of merch. He's now able to promote his crystal business that's still up and running.
But his number one directive was stream these 3 songs. He actually, this is interesting. Do you know how he talked to the Swifties and got their advice?
No.
So he reached out to Taylor Swift fans and was like, fucking help me. Like, how do I make this number one? The Swifties said, you have to make a playlist
of 3 songs.
Of 3 songs. And he's like, I'll do it. And what were the other 2 songs? Superficial.
I'll do it. Superficial. And I think Harder. Go Harder.
I think so.
I've been going hard, but it's time to go harder. That's my anthem right now. This year I'm going harder.
And so in having people, that's what generates to having one stream rather than having one song play on repeat for 24 hours.
One song on repeat only counts as one stream. But if it's on a playlist where there's more than one song, you can put that on repeat, and then every one of those plays counts as a different stream. I mean, that's how it is with like TikTok as well. So if somebody rewatches a TikTok reel and it'll say 10 million, it also then shows me, but these are the actual views that it got, which is like 8 mil, right? Because some people will rewatch things and it doesn't count.
Do you script your TikToks or are you just going on the fly?
It's a little bit of both. I usually like to take notes or have some sort of like bullet point. Before I used to like script it out like to the T and read it from the script. And then now I just kind of feel like I can go off the cusp as long as I have like the bullet points that I want to hit.
I was watching, because I'm beginning to script some stuff for my new project that I'm working on. Like, so all my stuff have to be scripted. And so I'm watching a lot of videos like best, tactics for scripting stuff. And they're really instructions for scripting like a YouTube video, but the information is transferable. And so this person was saying it's the last thing you say that is the most important, because that's the thing that's going to hook them. Like the last few words you say in, say, a 1-minute video is just a hook to get somebody to rewatch the entire thing. Do you know this trick?
The last and the first few things that you say, like the first couple of seconds are the most important. That's where you have to think when it comes to a video, you have to think of that as like the headline, so I'll say something kind of salacious, or I'll say something like Justin Baldoni just dropped his new lawsuit and he's calling out Taylor Swift. And then people are like, what? New lawsuit, Taylor Swift? I want to watch this.
Yeah.
And then I'll usually end with some sort of like call to action, like, all right, tune more on the podcast. Or usually what I say is drop a comment below and let me know what you think. That way it encourages people to get in the conversation and to engage. And then as they're typing their content, the video is playing again. And then sometimes they'll watch it another time.
What is the worst advice you've been given?
Oh my God, I've been given so much bad advice. So this is really funny because it is part of what made 2024 such a challenging year. So 2023 was a great year. I think I made like 275 for the year, just on the podcast, like just like what I was doing with merch, podcast, live shows. And then I came into 2024 and took a significant dip in my income. And it was primarily because I was like, oh, well, now I'm in a place where I want to bring people, onto my team that can help scale the business, right? And so my strategy going into it was, well, these people know the market, they know the space, they know digital, they know podcast. I know my brand and I know my voice and I know my audience, but I, trust other people that are smarter than me to know the landscape. And so there was somebody that I brought on my team that's thankfully no longer on my team that really did give me bad advice. And his advice was just follow, he was like, don't talk about politics. Don't talk about serious issues. Don't talk about your personal life. Don't talk about your dogs and your workout journey. Don't talk about any of that stuff. People don't care. What they care about is to listen to you talk about housewives. So go on and recap this week's Housewives show, and that's all you're going to give them. And make sure it's clear and concise and to the point and yada, yada, yada. And if there's anything that I've learned in the last, at this point, 10 years of podcasting, it's that whatever you're giving the audience is the only thing that they'll keep coming back for. And so my goal was always to build the show around me and my commentary rather than on the topic specifically, right? Because when you're sold to the topic, when you're sold to when you're married to Bravo, then all they care about is Bravo. And if Bravo goes under next summer, guess what? Your numbers are going to take that hit as well, because all people care about is Bravo. And that's why I've always I never shied away from having a hot take or a controversial opinion, because the people that I feel like go on the internet and have the very vanilla, or they say whatever the audience thinks that they want to hear, or they think that the audience wants to hear, then you're also kind of married to the pandering and you can never be honest. And I feel like it also doesn't translate in conversion, where one of the best pieces of feedback that I get from people is, I don't always agree with you, but I like listening to you. I like that you make me think about things differently. I like that you challenge my own viewpoints, and I can then, either figure out what it is about my viewpoint that I really believe in, or it challenges it to the point where I consider a different alternative. And so I think people trust me and there's a bit more loyalty. And I think that's why I have conversion, where if I launch a wine line, we've sold out every single limited edition wine line that we ever put on the market. When I do live shows, the rooms are always full. And I think it's because there is that connection and that loyalty, because people feel connected to me rather than they want to just come and listen to a Housewives recap. So
talk about also, I think this falls right in line with this, how you're banking more on the Zack Peter name than No Filter.
Yes,
what is
and
that? What is that decision?
So I always look at it as like, yes, No Filter is its own brand, but I always build the business out as the top, the Google at the top is Zack Peter, my name and my face. And under that, we have the podcast, we have the books, we have the social content, we have all the buckets that fall underneath that. And No Filter is just one of the buckets. And No Filter has now become its own entity where there are, buckets underneath that now. But I always wanted to make sure that the brand was my name and my face. And that's part of the reason I was blonde for so so many years is because it made me more recognizable.
Yes.
Even though, there may have been times where I didn't look the best with the blonde hair, but it was something that people kept remembering me by. And I was so afraid to abandon the blonde hair because I knew that that's what people identified with me. And then it kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, I think, I've given them enough of who I am that I feel like, we can ditch the blonde hair and still stay true to, keeping the audience.
Bethany just going to be on TikTok till we all die.
Well, TikTok's going away. I don't know what she's
Whatever.
going to
You
do
know
now.
what I mean. Insert
Bethany is the
iPhone.
type of person that knows how to stay relevant,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's very similar, and this is part of her TikTok strategy that I've kind of leaned into with the Blake and Baldoni stuff, and it is a tip that I learned from Bethany, is when you strike and the iron's hot, you have to keep doing that. So whether she was talking about Chanel or whether she was talking about crab legs or she was talking about the drones, she kept doing video after video after video
Caviar and
about that
tuna
until it
fish. Mm-hmm.
really burnt the tuna fish, until it burned people out. And she knew how to ride it until the very end. And then she found something new. And then she rode that till the very end. So I think one thing Bethany is good at is just kind of throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. And what sticks, she'll run with that until it runs out. And then she'll throw more things at the wall. But she just keeps going. So I think she'll continue to lean into social media and whatever comes from the TikTok
Mm-hmm.
extinction, whatever is built from that is what she'll lean into now.
And number 3, I'm going to group all these people together.
Mm-hmm.
The cast of Vanderpump Rules.
Vanderpump Rules.
The,
I knew
pe-
you
the,
were going to say that.
the people who we care about, meaning, I mean, for me, I'm going to say Tom and Jax. I think I have fully come out of the closet that I've always loved Tom Sandoval. Yeah, I love the bad. I love James Kennedy. Like I get a lot of look crazy eyes at me when I talk about this. I mean, not you, but the nicer folks. They tend to look at me like I'm crazy. But yeah, those people. And the answer is I don't want to hear about the Valley. Take that off the table.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I honestly don't think the ballet is going to last long. I think it's having its moment and I think it's going to fizzle out.
If you've listened to this episode this far, I feel this is a safe space to say I can't stand the Valley. It's actually unwatchable to me.
I don't mind the Valley. I enjoy it, but it's also just not anything new or fresh. And it's not new and fresh people, especially now that we know that Schwartz, Lala, and Sheena are going to be joining or they're going to be, in the new season, that it's just a lot of the same. But so what do I think they should do or what do I think they're going to do?
Both.
Um, I feel like poor Schwartz is going to end up. He's going to try to podcast for a minute, but I think he's ultimately going to end up probably like being a bar manager somewhere. Sandoval is going to continue to be reality TV villain. He'll do all these traders and for special forces. He'll continue to ride that as long as he can. He'll ride the live shows and the trivias as long as he can. Similar to Jax, I think they're just seasoned reality stars and they will ride anything that people give them for as long as they possibly can. They're going to be like Spencer and Heidi, right? Cockroaches until the end. You can't get rid of them until they have their resurgence. I'm really concerned about Ariana and Katie. Those are the two that I'm probably the most worried about. Lala's going to be fine. I think she's a hustler and she'll always find a way to make money. And she's got 2 babies to provide for. And there's nothing more motivating about providing than kids to feed. Sheena's going to be full influencer. She's going to do more of her Smirnoff deals. She's going to.
Isn't Ariana in the clear for the rest of her life? Or at least the next 10 years?
I don't think so.
Really? She's
not
proven
good
that
with
she can sell tickets on Broadway, which they can
But she's
pluck
not.
her into any show.
Yeah, but you have to remember, like when you're the hot commodity for so long, then you burn out the brands and you burn out the audience. Like eventually, people are going to be tired of coming in. Like everyone's rooting for Ariana because we watched her fall, right? But like, look at Brandi Glanville. Everyone rooted for her after Eddie Cibrian, and she came on to Real Houses of Beverly Hills, and everyone loved her until everyone got fatigued by her. And so I think with Ariana, she is talented, but I just don't think she has much of that drive. And from what we've seen from her on Vanderpump Rules, very messy, very bad with money, very lazy. I think she struck while the iron was hot and had a lot of people around her that were pushing her. But I imagine her team has gotten bigger. And the bigger your team is, the more cuts you have to cut out. And so I think even with Love Island, they're not going to keep her for another 10 years. Like she was good, but eventually, just like Ariel and just like Sarah Hyland, like they gave them 3 seasons and then they cycled them out and brought someone new in. And Ariana's just the new thing. But like when it comes to brands, you don't want somebody that's face is all over the place because then there's nothing unique about having them be the face of your brand, right? There's no exclusivity with Ariana's brand because her brand is just everywhere. She's everywhere. And with
Mhm.
the audience, when you see somebody that's that overexposed, eventually you're going to get so sick of them, just like the Kardashians. You're going to be so sick of them that you just want to tune out.
And
So I'm worried about her and I'm worried about Katie because I don't think either of them have much drive, and the sandwich shop is going to go under.
but how high can Katie's expenses be? I mean, that's the other thing. It's only a matter of what your expenses are.
Yeah, but you also have to understand, like, they are people that are probably living beyond their means, similar to housewives, right? They get
Mm-hmm.
money and then they spend a lot of money. They buy really expensive apartments. Listen, I've made that mistake, you know? So when it came to the rent here, I was like, shit, when things start to get a little tough, like, I made this commitment and I got to find a way to keep it going, you know?
Mm. Any
So
final
I think,
thoughts?
yeah, I
Mm.
think the only ones that'll really, Lala will be fine, Sheena will be fine, um, Tom and Jax will be fine. I
Will
think the rest
James
are
be
going to
fine?
struggle.
Like with this whole
So
alley
what I
thing?
think will happen with James is obviously I don't think there will be any charges filed against him. So the DV arrest will ultimately get dropped. They'll probably fight to somehow get it lowered or removed or whatever. They'll
But
pull
once you
some
have
sort of
that
legal
stink
strategy.
on your name, I don't know that people are
No, so
gonna.
what he's gonna do, the charges won't be filed, and he'll use that as his innocence, right?
Mm.
No charges were filed. There was no evidence to prove I did anything. He'll lean into that. Some people will buy it. The story will die down, and then, in time, he'll come back. He'll stick to his DJing, and I think he'll be fine.
Zack Peter, you're amazing. You're an amazing broadcaster. I think the world of you.
I don't know. I think you're gassing me up half the time.
No, what do you mean? I say
I
this
know.
to
I'm
you
kidding.
privately all the
I know.
time.
I'm
You
bad
know
at
I love
taking
you.
compliments.
Tell everybody where they can find you and follow you. Best way to follow you on YouTube, TikTok, everything.
Listen, it's just Zach Peter all over the internet, Instagram, YouTube, podcast, TikTok. You just type in Zach Peter and I will come up. See, and that's the important thing about launching a brand. And that's why I think all these people that have these,
Mhm.
like, I don't want to use specific examples, but like people that have, like, tea time with Teddy or tea time
Yes.
with Tiffany,
Mhm.
like all, and you're known as tea time with Tiffany. There's no real distinct brand outside of tea time with Tiffany. That's why I'm like, I always like to sell my name as the one driving force outside of the podcast. That way there's longevity. Zach Peter has more longevity than No Filter or The Pop
Mm.
Report or any one of my specific projects. So Zach Peter all over.
Zack
And listen
Peter.
to No Filter with Zach Peter
What
five
do
days a
you
week.
what are you most looking forward to this year?
I'm excited to do more live shows again, and I do have some fun tricks up my sleeve. With some new, it's time to like challenge. I mean, I've always, when it came to launching the wine or it came to doing
Hmm.
live shows, I was always like, what is something new and unique that people are not doing that I can then
Mm.
take a stab? And look at now. I mean, I started live shows back in 2022, right? Right off of pandemic. And, I was like, people are ready to get out and get off the internet. So much so that people would travel with the tour from city to city. And that was crazy. Seeing people that don't even live in any of these cities that were traveling city to city. But so even with the wine line, I was like, I want to create some sort of product, and merch is just so basic and everyone does merch. Like, let's create a product that I can drink on a live stream and drink with people and we can feel like we're connecting over that. So I have some ideas I'll share them with you offline, but I
I
do
love
have a
it.
couple of ideas for what I plan to lean into in this new year that are exciting for me.
Thank you so much. This has been a blast.
Thank you.
And if anybody who missed it, do look up Zach. Zach and I did a whole episode where we talked about we lifted the car, we lifted the hood under the car of Bethany's talk show.
Oh,
We looked under the
yeah.
hood, we found some jewels, and that's an amazing episode that's on YouTube and on the Hot Takes podcast feed. So that's a fun conversation that we had.
Yeah, that one is fun.
Thank you so much. I love you.
Love you.